Today we're going to talk about the Hankton drug organization, the biggest narcotics empire in the history of the Bayou, the Big Easy down in New Orleans. Just last week, the entire infrastructure of the organization was brought down in a giant racketeering and murder trial. They were all found guilty. At the head of that trial was the kingpin himself, Wild Telly Hankton. Sitting next to him at the defense table was his top hitman, a guy by the name of Walter Mooney Porter. Both very, very dangerous and vicious individuals, as evidenced by their criminal record over the last decade.
On trial again for murder, Hankton is accused of running down Darnell Stewart on Claiborne Avenue in Central City and shooting him in the face.
And he was known as the most wanted criminal in New Orleans area. And if we're gonna, clean up New Orleans, we've got to clean up all the crime.
One eyewitness was murdered and another was shot 17 times and survived. He is expected to testify.
Until something's done, the murders are continued, and we're losing, basically we're losing a generation.
In the early 1990s, it was started by George Cup Hankton, Telly's older brother. Telly and his cousins, several of his cousins, joined up with Cup around 94-ish when Telly was 18, and they ran the organization for roughly 15 years. A very long run, a lot of violence, a lot of bloodshed. While Telly Hankton's mother was indicted in the case when this case came down a couple years ago. Telly himself has been in prison since around 2010, I believe, when he was indicted for a murder that was involved in a giant street war that erupted in the Big Easy that was centerpiece in this racketeering trial. He's been locked up for about 5 years, and Mooney Porter has also been locked up on other charges related to a contract murder. So this conflict breaks out in around 2004. So the organization had been up and running for about 10 years, maybe 12 years, and you had a group of Hankton organization lieutenants led by a guy by the name of Brian Pluck Broussard. Broussard's top henchmen were guys by the name of Darnell, Gurney Stewart, and Jesse Tutu Reed. These were kind of a formidable threesome that broke off in 2004 and started doing their own business. Telly Hankton and Mooney Porter killed Gurney Stewart and Tutu Reed. Brian Pluck Broussard was shot but wasn't killed. The Gurney Stewart and Reed murders were incredibly vicious, and they were responses to Cup Hankton being murdered. The war broke out in around 2004. In 2006, you had what was called the Center City Massacre, where prosecutors were pointing the finger at Telly Hankton for killing 5 young members of the Broussard Stewart crew in Center City, which is a district of New Orleans.
Michael Anderson was accused of shooting 5 teens in Central City back in 2006, but federal prosecutors say he was not the one responsible.
And instead, they're pointing the finger at Telly Hankton, a man who's been called the crime boss of New Orleans.
It was dubbed the Central City Massacre. 5 teens gunned down at the corner of Josephine and Danielle in June of 2006. The killings prompted then Governor Kathleen Blanco to send the National Guard back to the city. Hankton was deemed New Orleans' most dangerous criminal by Mayor Mitch Landrieu and Police Chief Ronald Surpass back in 2011, running an alleged drug ring through Central City.
In 2007, there were a series of shootings which climaxed in December of that year with Cup Hankton being killed in front of a car wash. That spring of 2008 has got to be one of the most heinous murders ever committed in the gangland territory of the Bayou. Telly Hankton and his cousin Reese Hankton were chasing Darnell Gurney Stewart. They found him outside a club and began chasing him with their car.
Hankton is accused of running down Darnell Stewart on Claiborne Avenue in Central City and shooting him in the face.
A car chase. Gurney Stewart ended up crashing his car, getting on foot, and running away from the Mustang that was being driven by Telly Hankton and Reese Hankton. They eventually caught up to Darnell Stewart and hit him with the car, sending him, witnesses say, 10 feet in the air. Came down to the ground, car came to a stop. Telly Hankton gets out of the car with a pistol, pistol whips Stewart in front of a group of people in front of a club called Jazz Daiquiris, and then unloads his clip into him at point blank range, killing him instantly.
But the case has had a twisted past. One eyewitness was murdered and another was shot 17 times and survived.
The owner of Jazz Daiquiris, that club, was a witness to the killing and testified in front of a grand jury. Was going to testify at the 2011 trial, or did testify at the 2011 trial, but before that, Mooney Porter caught up to him and shot him 17 times to prevent that testimony. He survived and still testified.
Well, 61-year-old Curtis Matthews was gunned down in front of the Jazz Daiquiri Lounge on Saturday night. He is the brother of John Matthews, who testified against Telly Hankton at his last trial.
Mooney Porter goes and kills the owner of Jazz Daiquiri's brother as retaliation for the owner testifying. So this just got way out of hand. A ton of bodies dropping, just senseless murder. Tutu Reed lasted another year. In 2009, Tutu Reed was killed by Mooney Porter and Telly Hankton on a porch in New Orleans. They got out of a car and opened fire on him. Mooney Porter was known for being a two-fisted shooter, would come out with 2 automatic weapons, and his calling card were a lot of shell casings. And they killed Tutu Reed, who had also been allegedly one of the people that had killed Pluck Hankton. Both Hankton was arrested in 2010. Porter was arrested in, I believe, 2011. They were eventually convicted of their murder cases, and now they've just been convicted again last week of racketeering and additional murders. So an interesting aside to this story is, everyone's heard of Cash Money Records. They're the face of Southern hip hop in New Orleans. Baby Williams and Slim Williams, they founded the label in the early 1990s. According to DEA documents, part of the startup for Cash Money was created by a cash influx provided by the Hanktons. Cup Hankton specifically was very close with Baby Williams. According to informants for the DEA, he provided them part of a startup loan to Cash Money in the around 92 or 93. The bust didn't happen until 2010-ish. 2011, so you're talking about over a 15-year run for the Hankton boys in New Orleans. And in a lot of ways, the Cash Money Records ascent mirrored the Hankton organization's ascent. By the late 90s, early 2000s, both groups were really clocking a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of prestige. Cash Money Records produced their biggest name is Lil Wayne, one of the faces of modern day hip hop. And another interesting side note to this story was when Lil Wayne started, he was a part of a mini supergroup in the late 90s called the Hot Boys, and the Hot Boys were Young Turk, Lil Wayne, Juvenile, and BG. Now, BG, which stands for Baby Gangster, his real name is Christopher Dorsey. He was allegedly a member of the Hankton organization. After the arrest of BG in 2009 definitely raised some questions. I mean, he had already been implicated as being a drug runner, a drug dealer for the Hankton organization. But in the 2009 arrest, as I said, he's arrested coming out of his girlfriend's house in an SUV. And in the SUV, he's with 2 reputed hitmen. They got 3 automatic weapons with full jackets in them. It led to a lot of questions of and what was going on here, what were they intending to do. And BG got hit pretty hard. I believe he got a 14-year sentence. And what's most interesting is about BG, in addition to his alleged drug dealing activities with the Hankton organization, was that in the trial that was going on through most of June into early July, BG's name and his rap lyrics were brought into evidence. BG, well, first of all, he was caught on a wiretap talking with Mooney Porter about shootings, murders, and attempted murders. He was caught on a DEA wiretap talking to the main hitman of the Hankton organization. But several of BG's rap lyrics actually made it into evidence at trial to go to Mooney Porter and Telly Hankton's reputation of violence and bloodshed. One of, I think, the most prominent lyric that was shown out there was a rap video. Mooney Porter appeared in this video, and while BG was rapping, Mooney Porter was in the background. And then at the very end, one of his final lyrics BG came in the video and put his arm around Mooney Porter and alluded in a rap lyric saying, "You'll get hit 50 times when my nigger Mooney around," alluding to Mooney's reputation for unloading a ton of ammunition and shell casings. In fact, he was referencing specifically the 2-2 Reed murder where they found 50 shell casings. So the Hankton organization is no longer. They were convicted last week in a giant racketeering murder case in New Orleans, but their legacy of bloodshed, their legacy of wreaking havoc in the community obviously will last for a long time.